World's Apocalypse Online Part 3. Gu grabs the gallbladder of the python and eats it. He finds the gallbladder too terrible and poor, but thinks it's fortunate that the python's gallbladder is the antidote for the poison. Otherwise, it was going to be a problem. Gu realizes that the arrow's trajectory from two swallows fly together can change, and since it's like this, the attack becomes unpredictable. Gu starts wondering if the problem can be solved by combining secure, consecutive shooting, and two swallows fly together. Just after this, a system notification appears, saying that the constructive thinking of host Gu Kingshin has enabled the development of a new bow skill. After that, another two notifications appear, saying that the new bow skill is called Chaotic Dance, and the second notification says that Chaotic Dance Primary LVL means consecutively shooting 5 arrows in a short time period, and using an unpredictable trajectory to fight enemies. After reading this, Gu believed that it really did create a new bow skill, and it's also a growth type skill. He further wonders if changing ordinary skills into growth type skills is the true value of the war god ability. Suddenly, birds start screeching from a distance, and Gu notices that something is happening in the distance. Just after that, Gu notices some powerful puffs on the ground, and it turns out that more and more high-tier monsters are coming. So he starts thinking that this place is no longer safe, and he needs to move to other locations. Gu returns to the camp, and on seeing him, the man expresses relief, as he thinks something happened to Gu. Gu replies to him by saying that it's fine now, but they are going to have some trouble soon. On listening to this, the man asks him about the trouble, and Gu starts wondering that this place is probably going to be a battlefield, as the demon army is going after the heads of the leaders of the human race. Gu replies to the man by saying that the monsters are gathering together, and in consideration of both their capabilities, he suggests that they leave this enemy-occupied territory as soon as possible. The man gets panicked and says that they can rely on the concealment formation to hide a while longer, as according to him, they don't need to go outside where monsters are everywhere. Gu responds that high-tier monsters can see through the concealment formation with a single glance, and hiding is not a long-term solution. He tells the man that if he wants to live, he must come with him. After this, the man gets angry and, while pointing a finger at Gu, tells him that he definitely got this wrong, and if he wants to go, he can go, as he is not going to leave this place. Gu tries to make him understand by saying that once the monsters arrive, it will be too late to regret it. On listening to this, the man gets angry and tells Gu that he doesn't want to listen to his nonsense, which he has been enduring for many days. He asks Gu if he wants to leave, because backup is on the way, and believes that the monsters have scared Gu's brain to death. He tells Gu that he won't block him if he wants to die, but he won't risk his life with Gu. Gu becomes irritated and tells him that he will not force the man, since he has made his decision, and then tells him to part ways. After that, Gu is seen walking through trees in a jungle. He reaches the place of death in the jungle, and starts thinking that Ning Yuchen and Gong Sunjai's place of death was east of the barracks, and he can evade it if he goes west. As soon as he starts walking, he finds the place a bit strange. Gu keeps walking and suddenly notices that he has reached the edge of the rock, and finds the ground below the big rock filled with big tunnel-looking holes. As Gu notices this, he uses the chaotic skill and takes out 6 consecutive arrows, shooting them with full power towards the ground. As soon as Gu shoots the arrows, a voice screaming that it hurts comes from below. It turns out that the voice comes from the tunnel demon. It can resist elemental skills, and has the ability to tunnel into the ground. The tunnel demon then asks Gu about how he knew he was here. Gu gets surprised on seeing a real tunnel demon, and starts thinking that this type of monster is great at killing on a battlefield, as it is unexpected that it would appear in this place. After this, Gu starts laughing and makes fun of the tunnel demon by saying that it's covered in fresh dirt, which is completely different from its surroundings, and only a blind person wouldn't discover it. Gu further makes fun of the tunnel demon by saying that it should bring some old dirt from where it came, because that way, no one would be able to discover it. Multiple voices saying, "Really?" start coming, and Gu gets surprised and starts wondering why so many voices are responding, unless there were multiple tunnel demons. Gu realizes that it's not one but a whole squad of tunnel demons, and that it's a pretty rare large setup, and he thinks that it looks like an assassination mission. He then starts thinking that he doesn't need to be afraid, no matter how many come, as it's a good thing that their brains don't work well. After this, Gu tricks them by saying that he won't say much, and now they should go back and bring some dirt. and he will wait for them here. If he can still discover them after coming back, then this life is theirs. The tunnel demons ask Gu to wait for them as they go back. As they return, Gu closes his eyes, takes a sigh of relief, and thinks of them as a bunch of iron simpletons. Suddenly, Gu gets shocked and wonders, who is it? As he hears a voice thanking him for helping them out. The voice comes from Gongsun Jai, who is a frontline general, supreme elder of the sacred sect, and grandmaster of formations. He tells Gu not to be nervous, as they are allies. Gu gets shocked upon seeing Gongsun Jai, and wonders why he is here. He begins to wonder what the matter is, as he tries to figure out why he would meet him, when he clearly went the opposite way. General Gongsun notices that he recognizes him, as now it would be easy to talk. After that, Gongsun puts 2 fingers on a magical device, and opens a 6 trigram concealment formation. Rays of magical green light start moving as the formation opens up. On seeing this, Gu starts thinking that it was expected of a formation grandmaster to use a formation in order to hide an entire Taoist temple. As the formation opens up, General Gongsun asks General Ning to come out, as the tunnel demons have all left. Gu gets shocked and can't believe his eyes, as he sees General Ning walking out with her sword and armor. General Ning asks Gu about how he made the tunnel demons retreat, as their strength is not ordinary, and even, they couldn't easily drive them off. Gu replies by saying that he fooled them into leaving, because although the tunnel demons are powerful but their minds haven't developed. General Ning gets a bit surprised and asks him about who he is, and how he knows the weakness of those creatures. Gu shows his badge, which reads his name and post as Gu Qingshan from the frontline troops, and says that he often deals with monsters, so he's a little informed of them. While removing the cap from her head, she says that it does make sense, as he is a person from the frontline troops. Gu is taken aback when he sees General Ning's face and realizes she is the Gorilla General and Holy Celestial Maiden, Ning Yuchen. On seeing this, General Gongsun starts thinking that his little friend Qingshan is going to stare into a trance, as Ning Yuchen is every male cultivator's dream lover, and smiles at the young people of these days. Gu, on the other hand, begins to wonder why he met the 2 of them here, as he clearly went in opposite directions. Seeing him engrossed in deep thought, General Gongsun gets shocked and realizes that he has underestimated him, as he has good composure and hasn't taken a single look at General Ning. Gu becomes engrossed in his thoughts and begins to consider the records, as they did not meet, and their places of death were far apart in the records. He begins to wonder, how did history change? Continuing with his deep thoughts, Qingshan thinks that something unexpected definitely occurred as the demon army came with preparations, and they couldn't be evaded by the 2 of them without a reason. As he puts his hand inside his robe and takes out the jade pendant, he tries to remember that the army dispatch command shouldn't be relayed to the troops of the assassination mission, because he killed the demon army's messenger. He then realizes that the person who changed history is he himself. General Gongsun asks his friend Qingshan about the jade pendant in his hand. Gu tells him that this is the demon army's message tablet, which he obtained after he coincidentally killed an injured demon messenger. After hearing this, General Gongsun bursts out laughing, and remarks that it's no surprise that the demon army abruptly halted their pursuits due to a problem with their army commands. He further says that this counts as their friend Qingshan directly helping them. General Ning also starts remembering that the messenger was killed by her spirit beast. She further asks Gu about how he killed the messenger, as that messenger's strength was not ordinary, and Gu's cultivation hasn't reached foundation establishment. Gu replies by showing his bow and his consecutive shooting skills, as he shoots 3 arrows towards the rock, and tells them that's how he killed the messenger. General Gongsun appreciates Gu's skills, whereas General Ning carefully observes them. After this, Gu says that the demon army should be very fast to react to this, and they need to quickly return to human territory. After this, General Gongsun points out General Ning's injury, to which she replies that they should go as she is fine, and things can't be delayed. Suddenly, General Ning feels a tremor of pain, and her eyes and body fill with purple poison. Just as General Ning is about to fall, Gu runs and catches her, and tells her to be careful. Whereas, General Ning gets a bit flustered, tells him to go, and says that she is fine. After this, Gu asks General Gongsun about what happened to General Ning. General Gongsun replies to him, saying that a few days ago, the demon army attacked them with poison, and General Ning's body was hit with different types of poison. He further says that although the detox pill was used, there is still some lingering poison that hasn't been cleared. Gu tells him that he actually has a detox item on him, but he is not sure if it will work or not. General Gongsun asks him about the item he is speaking of, and Gu shows him the python's gallbladder. On seeing this, General Gongsun says that it's just the right thing to help. General Ning watches this and says that the demon army might issue another poison assault, and he should keep that snake gallbladder to save himself. Gu gets a bit angry and asks General Ning if she's going to eat it or not, and if not, he will throw it away. General Ning holds the python's gallbladder, and on the other side, General Gongsun starts thinking that this can't go on, and he has to stop her before her outburst. General Ning's temper is famously explosive, and Kingshin is seeking death by showing anger to her. General Gu accepts the gallbladder, and begins to think that humans are so laughable because people we trust betray us, while strangers are concerned with our lives and deaths. On seeing this reaction, General Gongsun realizes that he guessed it wrong again, and considers himself an old man, while wondering what is wrong with him. On the other side, General Ning starts remembering that the young cultivators that approached her before were all lechers, and she can't depend on any of them during a critical time. She remembers when the cultivators appreciated her great style, and told her to approach them anytime if she needed anything. But she thinks that Gu Qingshan is different from them. At the same time, General Gongsun thinks that the lingering poison in her body has made her weak. After this, General Ning asks for 8 minutes, as she is going to circulate her Kai to cure her injury. As General Ning goes and sits in a cross-legged position to circulate her Kai, General Gongsun asks Gu not to bother her, and asks him to come with him in order to set up some defense formations on the periphery. Gu and Gongsun go and sit on the periphery, where Gongsun tells Gu that if there's a problem, General Ning can be protected at any time, and Gu observes that General Gongsun has thought this out well. Gongsun starts moving his fingers on the formation device, and commands it to be open. Suddenly, rocks start shaking, and a formation with yellow rays of light is made in the sky. While closing the formation, General Gongsun thinks it will be good about now. After this, Gu asks Gongsun that if he and General Ning were attacked and chased by the demon army, why didn't he call for reinforcements? General Gongsun replies by saying that they have already sent message charms to the human race, but there are still no replies, and Gu further asks him the reason behind it. If the message charm is stolen by the demon army, General Gongsun gets tensed and says that it would be good to know if they were stolen by the demon army. On listening to this, Gu gets anxious and says, unless there are traitors in the high ranks of the human race. To which General Gongsun replies by saying that it's right, because when they came out to investigate, they accidentally discovered that there are spies from the demon race within the high ranks of the human race. Gu begins to think that it's no surprise that these two legendary people didn't receive any assistance from the human race, because there are traitors. He realizes that, looking at it this way, the situation with the three of them involved is even more dangerous. Gu wishes that, hopefully, the demon army won't come so quickly. On the other hand, in the barracks, the man can be seen cooking chicken, and thinks that Gu Qingshan is an idiot, as there is food to eat and water to drink. He wonders why he wanted to go out and seek death when it's so comfortable in the camp. Just as he is eating chicken, he notices a big thud, and wonders what it can be, since he is just eating chicken. A big black monster comes approaching the camp, and on seeing this, the man gets scared. The monster crushes the camp with his foot, killing the man and destroying the whole thing, and then returns. General Ning is seen circulating her Kai and curing her injury. She spits out the python's poison from her mouth, and thinks that there are no traces of the poison inside her body, and now her body will be able to recover quickly, relying on her own cultivation and the python gallbladder. After this, General Ning recovers from the poison and her injuries and approaches General Ning and Qingshan. General Ning says to Gu that he hasn't entered a sect yet, and asks him if he would come to the sacred sect for the annual exam. He also tells him to use his name, as it's useful. On listening to this, Gu expresses his gratitude to General Gongsun. Just as General Ning arrives, General Gongsun asks her if she is okay, to which she replies, yes, as all the poison in her body has been cleared, and her injuries have mostly recovered. General Ning expresses her gratitude to Gu, and Gu replies that General Ning doesn't have to be polite, as she is the main power against the demon army, and helping her is helping himself. After this, General Gongsun tells both of them not to say anything anymore, as the demon army can come at any time, and they should get going. Suddenly, they all hear a sudden tremor, and recognize that this feeling is actually that of a monster approaching. Gu gets anxious and shouts that these monsters won't even give them time to catch their breath. General Ning replies to him, saying that if it's unavoidable, then they should fiercely fight to the end. General Ning takes out her saber, whereas Gu takes out his bow, and he says that General Ning is right, and gets ready to fight for the road of life. General Ning notices Gu's bow and tells him that his bow is terrible and tells her to use hers. She passes him a powerful magical pink bow and tells her that the name of the bow is Night Rain and her father gave it to her, but today she is gifting it to him. Gu carefully notices the bow and thinks that the aura of it is concealed to hide the killing aura of the user. It's a rarely seen and excellent weapon. He tells General Ning that with the harsh battle in front of them, he will accept this bow, so as not to cause trouble for both of them. After this, a big faceless giant is seen approaching them and General Ning says that the faceless giant can eat up spirit power, so it is naturally resistant against elemental power, and the 5-element formation doesn't have a big effect on it. General Gongsun notices this and starts thinking that he wasted his spirit power, because his 5-element formation from before couldn't harm it. General Ning comes in full power with her sword, and says that since the 5-element formation is useless against it, she will go first. General Gongsun replies by saying that he will take care of the rest of the monsters, and then trouble General Ning and King Shin. After that, Wind Blade's afterimage is seen, and a vibrating splash is seen on the ground. General Ning attacks the faceless giant, who turns over and tries to attack General Ning back. She escapes the attack and, with full power, attacks the faceless giant. On seeing this, Gu starts wondering if General Ning's strength isn't too insane, as she can even push back a monster like a faceless giant of this body type. He then starts thinking about her using a saber in place of a sword, as she is trained in sword skills, so her power should be even stronger. General Gongsun replies to him, saying that she used to be a sword cultivator, but she abandoned the sword and used a saber. Gu asks him the reason behind it, and he replies that she once had a martial brother who was very close to her, but that martial brother betrayed her, and from then on, she started disliking sword cultivators. On hearing this, Gu gets tensed and asks about the amount of dislike, as he realizes that he himself is a sword cultivator. General Gongsun tells him that every time she met a sword cultivator after that, she would use sparring as a front to beat them up, beating them until they would kneel and beg for mercy on the ground. Gu becomes tense as he hears this, and imagines General Ning beating him up, and Gu pleading for mercy. General Gongsun then tells him that it is strange because even if Ning Yuechen's reputation is horrible and widespread, there are still many sword cultivators who are courteous to her here. They both start considering men as low, and suddenly, an attack comes near them, and they get confused as they see Ning Yuechen sitting on the ground. After this, General Ning tells them to go and kill other monsters, as they have time to talk bad about other people. General Gongsun agrees with her, and says she's right, as they can't be idle anymore. After this, General Gongsun opens the mountain burial formation, which pushes away the approaching monsters. Gu uses his chaotic dance skill, as the monsters try to come back and attack them with his arrows. Suddenly, a system notification appears, saying that the host has killed the high-tier monster Quiet Flame Demonic Snake, and has received a soul power of +20. Which shows his current soul power as 21/7. Another notification appears, stating that if monsters with higher levels than the host are killed, the soul power limit will be ignored, and the host is free to continue challenging strong foes. Gu gets surprised on reading this, and starts thinking that it actually has this kind of mechanism. Another notification appears that says the detected player has triggered a special historical scenario, as current conditions are suitable to initiate the scenario. Multiple notifications start to appear, and one of them says that the Battle of the Fallen is about to be initiated. As Gu reads this, standing in between the monsters, he wonders if history is going to repeat itself here. A series of system notifications appear, saying that the player Gu Qingshin has entered the mission of fate, because the chains of fate have been broken, and the predetermined history has changed. One notification states the mission outlet, which says that Gong Senjai and Ning Yuechen are characters who have fallen and have been buried in the deep parts of history, and changing their fate will change the course of history. Another notification states the mission objective, which is to save Gong Senjai and Ning Yuechen. A unique war ability will be the mission reward, and it comes with a warning that if the mission fails, it will result in the player's death. On reading this, Gu gets anxious and starts wondering if the system is joking. He starts thinking that he doesn't need to be killed by the system, because he definitely won't be alive if he's the only one left, so completing the mission is the only way to survive. As he watches Ning Yuechen fighting with monsters with full power, He thinks to himself that he can't even interfere in this level of battle, and that there will definitely be more monsters coming here, and the three of them will eventually be swarmed to death. He starts wondering how this mission can actually be completed. Just then, General Gongsun interrupts his series of thoughts and asks to supplement an arrow, as there's another fish that broke through the net. Gu immediately kills the monster by shooting an arrow, and another notification appears, saying that the host has killed a high-tier monster called the Quiet Flame Demonic Snake, and has received a soul power of +20. Now his soul power is 41/7. Gu starts thinking that currently he has 41 soul points, and he should be able to unlock the War God ability on the Night Rain bow. After this, Gu shouts for open Night Rain skills. A system notification then appears that states the name of the bow as Night Rain, and lists some skills that can be used. The first skill that can be used is Bombardment, whose user is Ningonan, and it consumes 15 points of soul power. The second skill that can be used is 100 Step Piercing Leaf, whose user is Ningonan, and it also consumes 15 points of soul power. The third skill that can be used according to the system is Wind Riding. It is a passive skill whose user is also Ningonan, and it consumes 10 points of soul power. After reading this, Gu starts thinking that an additional War God skill is an extra means of self-protection, but since he has enough soul points, he will learn all of them. A series of system notifications appear, telling him he has spent 40 points of soul power, and that his remaining soul points are 1/7. Another notification appears that says Gu has learnt Bombardment, 100 Step Piercing Leaf and Wind Riding as skills. A monster starts coming towards Gu, but he uses his Bombardment skill and kills it. A system notification appears that says, the host has killed a high-tier monster who was a blood-drinking demon, and now Gu has received 30 points of soul power, and his current soul power is now 31/7. After reading this, Gu starts thinking that this move's power is strong, but the spirit power consumption has also increased a lot. He thinks that if they continue like this, they will lose for sure, as the demon army is endless. He notices that there is no single advantage in the fight between Ning Yuchen and the Faceless Giant. Gu asks General Gongsun if he has any other way of contacting the outside world, to which he replies that their only way is to contact the three saints for reinforcements, and then they will definitely be able to escape this predicament. The three reinforcement saints were 100 Flower Goddess, Mysterious Sky Lord, and Sorrow Grandmaster. Gu thinks about how they will invite them over as they are surrounded by the demon army. While fighting with the monsters, General Gongsun says that when Ning and he were investigating the demon army, they discovered the Divine Martial World and set up a transportation formation. If Gu can reach the transportation formation, he will have a chance to meet the saints. Gu uses his chaotic dance skills to fight the monsters. Gu inquires about the Divine Martial World, to which General Gongsun responds that it is a ruined world with tens of hundreds of war god corpses. General Gongsun says that it's hard for him to imagine how a world with so many powerful figures could be destroyed. Gu is astounded to learn that there are worlds other than the current and cultivation worlds. He tries to understand the concept of multiple worlds in his head. Gu advises General Gongsun to take advantage of the opportunity and travel to the Divine Martial World, while he covers for him. With a tired face, General Gongsun tells Gu that he hopes King Shin will complete this task on his behalf. Gu asks what's wrong with him, and General Gongsun replies that he was injured early on by the demon army. He informs Gu that he is using formations to lock his life force, so that he will not die for the time being. He further tells him that, however, this injury has been personally inflicted by the Demon Lord, so it can sense where he is, and he won't be able to last long if he's in the Divine Martial World. General Gongsun shows him a white stone and tells him this is the key to activate the transportation formation, and Gu needs to carefully store it. General Gongsun tells him that he should use it wisely, as it is the universal formation array, and there are many useful formations on it, but there are only a limited number of uses for it. Gu asks him how long General Gongsun can last, and he replies that he can last half a day, as the formation will collapse after that, and he will also fall. Gu accepts it and asks him to wait for him, whereas General Gongsun tells him that he has left some people in the Divine Martial World, but he is not sure if they are alive or not, and if they are, Gu can ask them to help him. Suddenly, Gu disappears. A system notification appears saying that Gu is entering space-time turbulence and is getting transferred to another world. While entering, Gu gets shocked and starts thinking what kind of place this is, as a dead corpse is pinned to a stone pillar. A dead corpse-like man notices Gu and starts wondering who he is. With this, its third part ends here. So if you like the video, then hit that like button and leave a comment for the next part. Most important, subscribe and press the bell icon for notification. Rest I will meet you in new video till then, bye.